A near-death experience is real. For thousands of years, people from many different cultures have claimed to have experienced them. They might be delusions brought on by a dying brain, they might be genuine glimpses into another world that is about to be entered, or they might be something else entirely. Science has backed up these claims. Since 1962, Dr. Raymond Moody has studied the cases of people who have had what is known as near-death experiences, or those in which one has almost passed away and then come back. He discovered that these appear to be universal. He hears the same stories from different people all over the world. In a fascinating holographic panoramic review that takes place at the moment of death, those who experience it get to look back on everything they've ever done while they were alive from the perspective of the people they interacted with. Dr. Moody didn't grow up in a religious household. He simply never considered that there might be an afterlife. But in his study, he managed to conclude that death is a transition into another world. People who have experienced death and come back say it was one of their most wonderful experiences. And based on the information he gathered, it appears that after we pass away, we do enter another realm of existence. NDEs, in the opinion of philosophers, present an intriguing argument in favor of the existence of an afterlife. Atheists, believers, and everyone in between are all likely to be exposed to NDEs. However, those who have these encounters are much more likely to leave an NDE with the conviction that there is an afterlife. NDEs are so profoundly vivid and moving that they serve to completely reorient people in regard to their beliefs, with between 76 and 100% of those who have them concluding that an afterlife definitely exists. The reason non-experiencers believe is that experiences exist. The Near-Death Experience Research Foundation, a website dedicated to near-death experience or NDE research, was founded in 1998. Due to the NDERF website's popularity, there was a unique opportunity to conduct a comprehensive study of NDEs from all over the world. The NDERF website has a form where people with near-death experiences can share a thorough account. It also has a comprehensive questionnaire. The site currently hosts more than 3,700 NDEs, making it the world's largest collection of publicly available NDE accounts. Although accounts of people having near-death experiences date back to ancient times, a researcher has discovered that the earliest recorded medical description of the phenomenon may date back to around 1740 and originate from a French physician. The case of a famous Parisian apothecary who temporarily lost consciousness and later reported seeing a light so pure and bright that he believed he must have been in heaven is described in the book. Pierre-Jean de Monchaux, a military doctor from northern France, wrote about a near-death experience in his book Anecdotes de Médecine. Dr. Philippe Charlier, a physician and archaeologist well known in France for his forensic work on historical figures' remains, discovered the description. The medical description was unexpectedly found in a book that Charlier had purchased for €1 or a little over $1 at an antique store. Charlier was surprised to discover an account of a near-death experience from a time when most people looked to religion to provide an explanation for such experiences. In the case description from the 18th century, Monchaux made comparisons between his patient and other people who had suffered from hanging, hypothermia, and drowning and had reported similar experiences. He made the assumption that excessive blood flow to the brain could be the cause of the mystical sensations people report experiencing after regaining consciousness. Modern researchers, however, believe that it's most likely the brain's lack of blood flow and oxygen that sends the organ into hyperdrive and results in the sensations connected with near-death experiences. Charlier compared the nearly 250-year-old description with the modern-day Grayson criteria. It's a scale created in the 1980s by a psychiatrist to gauge the severity of individuals' near-death experiences and enable these cases to be studied consistently. The scale asks about perceptions experienced during NDEs, such as an altered sense of time, a review of one's life, and feelings of joy. A score out of 7 or higher out of a possible 32 is classified as an NDE. Charlier concluded that the patient met the Grayson criteria with a score of at least 12 out of 32, despite the incomplete data in the old book. And if we're talking about the other true-to-life stories of near-death experiences, one of the most striking examples is the one involving dentures. Yep, dentures. A clinical patient was brought to a Dutch hospital. His dentures were taken out of his mouth before resuscitation and eventually got lost in the commotion. Days later, the patient said to his doctor that the nurse who took out his dentures should probably know where his dentures were. The patient was correct, but he shouldn't have known that since the patient was clinically dead when the nurse took out his dentures. He was in a deep coma and was in the process of CPR. When asked further, the man appeared to have seen himself lying in bed and to have observed from above how nurses and doctors were performing CPR on him. In addition, he was able to accurately give an in-depth description of the space in which he had been revived. He had been extremely afraid that the doctors and nurses would stop CPR and that he would die when he first saw the situation, and it was true. The patient's extremely poor health at the time of admission led the hospital staff to have very negative views about his survival rate. The patient claims that he tried desperately, but in vain, to let them know that he was still alive and that they should keep performing CPR. He claims that this experience has made him lose his fear of dying. There was another report of an NDE involving a 15-year-old boy who underwent general anesthesia. He was diagnosed with cerebral palsy with spastic diplegia and a history of prematurity. He wasn't taking any medication, had no prior history of psychiatric disorders, and was attending public school successfully. He reported a state of awareness while being under anesthesia. In fact, he remembered hearing music and the voice of the doctor, seeing 3 big lamps above him, and having tactile sensations. He felt as if someone was moving him on the operating table and putting him on his left side. He also felt an injection in his hip. All of it actually happened and was confirmed by the doctors. Interestingly, 3 years earlier, during a similar operation, he described an NDE that he never told anyone before because he thought it was a dream. The following is an excerpt from the boy's interview with his psychologist. I was sleeping and suddenly I felt awake and had the impression that I was leaving my body through my head. I could see from above my whole body lying on my back on the operating table and surrounded by many doctors. I felt as being above my physical body and I was lying face down. I was like a spirit without my own arms and legs, and I was floating under the ceiling of the room. Initially, while feeling detached from my real body, I felt a little bit scared and weird, but then I had a sensation of lightness and I felt relaxed and comfortable. I had the impression that everything was real. I distinguished the operating room and the surgeons. I then saw a dark tunnel in front of me and I felt attracted to it. I passed through the tunnel very fast, and at its end I saw a bright light that did not hurt my eyes. As I was passing through the tunnel, I heard noises which sounded like when you are watching TV without a program. Then these noises became voices. Suddenly I felt again attracted to my body, which was still lying on the operating table, in which I went again through my head. At this time point, the experience was over and I was asleep. But what about blind people? Do they experience NDEs too? Do they have visual perceptions during that time? And is it the same as those from sighted people who experience NDEs? Researchers in the field of near-death studies have long been intrigued by the question of whether blind people can actually see during out-of-body experiences when they are very close to death. The idea that this improbable event could actually happen has been partially fueled by anecdotal reports by well-known researchers. Psychiatrist Brian Weiss provided one account in which he described a blind elderly woman. The woman suffered a cardiac arrest in the hospital where Weiss was the chairman of the psychiatric department. She was unconscious as the resuscitation team tried to revive her. According to a later report, she floated out of her body and stood near the window watching the resuscitation. She observed without any pain whatsoever as they thumped on her chest and pumped air into her lungs. During the resuscitation, a pen fell out of her doctor's pocket and rolled near the same window where her out-of-body spirit was standing and watching. The doctor eventually walked over, picked up the pen, and put it back in his pocket. He then rejoined the frantic effort to save her. They succeeded. A few days later, she told her doctor that she had observed the resuscitation team at work during her cardiac arrest. No, he soothingly reassured her. You were probably hallucinating because of the anoxia. This can happen when the heart stops beating. But I saw your pen roll over to the window, she replied. Then she described the pen and other details of the resuscitation. The doctor was shocked. His patient had not only been comatose during the resuscitation, but she had also been blind for many years. People frequently use their near-death encounters to reflect on their lives. Life review experiences are important, even though they cannot be verified scientifically. They can have significant impact on the near-death experiencer and occasionally prompt them to reevaluate their values and morals. The following is a physician's account of an NDE patient's life review.
When he realized that a collision was imminent, the patient said that time seemed to slow down as he hit his brakes and went into an uncontrolled slide. Then he seemed to pop out of his body. While in this state, he had a life review which consisted of brief pictures, flashes of his life. His car collided with a truck and the truck bed smashed through the window, causing multiple injuries to his head and chest. Medical reports show that he was in a coma and nearly died, yet he had a vivid sensation of leaving his physical body and entering into darkness. He had the feeling of moving up through a dark tunnel toward a point of light. Suddenly, a being filled with love and light appeared to him. Now he had a second life review, one guided by the being of light. He felt bathed in love and compassion as he reviewed the moral choices he had made in his lifetime. He suddenly understood that he was an important part of the universe and that his life had a purpose.
When familiar people appear in dreams or hallucinations, they are much more likely to be alive and have recent memories. This is in sharp contrast to those who have had near-death experiences, where familiar people are almost always found dead. Near-death experiences have spoken of instances where they saw someone they thought was alive but who had actually passed away. These instances show that NDEs can't be accounted for by the experiencer's expectations of what would occur during a life-threatening event. A near-death experiencer who was born deaf told the following story. I approached the boundary. No explanation was necessary for me to understand at the age of 10 that once I crossed the boundary, I could never come back, period. I was more than thrilled to cross. I intended to cross, but my ancestors over another boundary caught my attention. They were talking in telepathy, which caught my attention. I was born profoundly deaf and had all hearing family members, all of which use sign language. language. I could read or communicate with about 20 ancestors of mine and others through telepathic methods. It overwhelmed me. I could not believe how many people I could telepathize with simultaneously. More than 1,000 people who had close calls with death felt strongly that their experiences were real. Among the 1,122 near-death experiences surveyed, there were numerous doctors, scientists, lawyers, and nurses. Given that such a large percentage of near-death experiences consider their experiences to be definitely real, it would be reasonable to accept their assessment of their personal experience unless there is strong evidence that their experiences were not real. These findings suggest that, for the majority of us who have not personally experienced an NDE, we should be very cautious about labeling NDEs as unreal. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and watching today. My name is James and this is the Restricted Section. We upload 3 times per week. If you enjoy stories like this one, please like the video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications and all that annoying stuff so you don't miss any of our future uploads. If there's any topics you would like to see in future videos, please let me know in the comments section down below. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.